The Life, Love, and Leadership podcast is a presentation of Marissa Q. Paine International, Dr. James Paine Speaks, and the Foundation for Successful Marriages with Rare Gem Productions. Learn more at successfulmarriages.org. And here are your hosts, the Dr. and the Mrs. Marissa Q. Paine and Dr. James Paine.
Welcome back to Life, Love, and Leadership with Dr. James and Marissa Q. Paine. I am Marissa Q. Paine.
And I am Dr. James Paine, and we are delighted that you're joining us for this episode of Life, Love, and Leadership. So today we're going to be taking a deep dive and talking about one of the 7 elements of building a love that lasts, and that is the element of high self-esteem and emotional well-being. So it's going to be deep. But first, let's find out what's on your mind, Marissa. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind today? I am enjoying summer. That's what's on my mind. Try to. I work so much that sometimes I forget to get out and enjoy the roses, smell the roses. But I've been doing that. I'm thinking about a great evening we recently had at the opera, which was something new for us.
Something very, very, very new for us.
I know. It was really lovely. And, it started with a kind of a dinner under the tent. It was a beautiful evening and first time at the opera. So that was interesting.
It was a lot of fun. You've also kind of channeled your inner Tiger Woods.
What?
So you've taken some golf lessons and you're looking at getting out with me?
I'm trying. Yes. We are. Yes, it's kind of like can't beat them, join them,
That's how you got into football, too.
That is how I got into football.
Yes.
And I loved football. I really appreciated that. That was when the Rams were the greatest show on turf.
Shout out to the 99 Rams.
And it was listen, if I'm going to get any time with this man at all, I'm going to have to learn to love this sport and come to find out I actually did. And then we lost our team.
Yeah.
So, which that seems to happen a lot. Products that I like, restaurants that I like stuff I like always seems to go away.
I don't know. Messing with the model, right?
I know. I don't know what that is, but I think we should do more new things. I'm feeling new adventures. So I don't know. What else can we try? What's on your bucket list?
Well, let's see. I know you really don't like basketball, but
no.
Bucket list. Well, I'd love to go to NBA Finals, sit courtside for all 7 games.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
I don't even know what that costs.
That's why it's on the bucket list,
right? You probably would like to do the championship for pretty much any sport, though, right?
Not necessarily baseball.
Okay.
Not necessarily baseball.
Really?
But yeah, I'd love to do the NBA Finals, all 7 games, court side seat, half court.
You trying to sit where Beyonce and Jay-Z sit.
Exactly. I'm trying to sit with Beyonce and Jay-Z for sure.
Okay.
Super Bowl, 50-yard line.
Yeah.
Probably 5 rows elevated from the field. Maybe the Masters. I'd love to go to the Masters and, just travel to some really, really cool places. I think Jerusalem, the Holy City, would be a great space for us to spend some time. We're going to Dubai in March. So that's one of my checkoffs. And, and I've got to spend some time, I think, on the continent of Africa as well. So
I've been seeing a lot of Facebook folks doing the safari and stuff like that. I'm not sure. A recent friend of mine, it was so up close and personal. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I am very, very concerned about it. And, I've heard stories of close friends who have gone. And just the idea of being in that proximity to the king of the jungle and with no formal barriers between us.
Yeah.
It's kind of dicey.
But I think that's our Americanized,
you're right,
perspective. But I think it's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing, but there's always that outlier that somebody's going to get eaten. and you just don't want to be that out.
It's kind of like the circle of life and how it's supposed to be, and everything like flows like it's supposed to flow.
Right.
I love that. I love to travel too. So, I mean, there's like so many, I think, majestic places on earth that I haven't seen yet, that I definitely want to see. And I think we just talked about this the other day. I want to go hiking. I want you to go hiking. My best friend is in, San Diego, and every time I go out there, she forces me up some mountain. And I enjoy it. We're not really outdoors people, but I'm starting to, in my older
for the record,
age.
You enjoy hiking. I just want to clarify.
Well, I mean, yes.
Okay.
In not like in its natural habitat. Like everything she's taken me in has been fairly,
So are you thinking like a hiking roller coaster? What are you?
No, what in the world are you talking about? No, I mean, I'm just saying, like, I haven't been like roughing it. Like, I haven't been like in the rainforest or anything like that.
Right.
I've been in pretty, there's like no mountain lions and rattlesnakes and stuff in the places that I've hiked so far. And I do enjoy that.
Got it.
So I don't know how rough I'm prepared to go, but I do enjoy it. And I want to get on the water too. I haven't been sailing, haven't been on the boat. So I'm trying to get that out the way as well.
Okay.
So
let's do it.
We definitely got a bucket list to do. So I'm enjoying summer. That's what's on my mind.
All right. Very good. Very good.
So should we talk about the fight of the week?
I think we should get into the fight of the week.
All right. So fight of the week this week goes to the honey-do list gone terribly wrong. Okay. Okay. So we have an office at home, and we also have what we call a study. So the study is like my public place to do work. Like it's where I like go live. It's where I coach clients virtually. That it's the pretty place for work. And then we have an office that's like basically the catch-all for bills, and is basically where projects go to die. So it's the non-public part. And I have been working from home a lot more, and, am actually thinking about moving my office back to the home office. I got workspace because, the kids were home and in the way and all of that stuff. But now that they're not home anymore, I actually, spend a lot more time working from home. And so I wanted to like make some changes to the study. So I've been talking to you about, moving this steel case that's in the office down to my study and getting the printer set up and all that. So this has been going on for some time. It's been on the honey-do list. We had a 3-day weekend, and I was like, okay, great. Can we, in my mind, I asked you that. I was like, oh, we can do this on the holiday weekend. And, thought that was going to happen. In my mind, we had a deal. I'm not sure if it was a deal in your mind, but in my mind, you committed, and this is what we were doing for the holiday.
It was definitely not a deal. It's definitely not a commitment.
But you didn't say no. So if you didn't say no, it's basically a yes.
But I didn't say yes either.
So I feel like that's like passive aggressive. So if I say, oh, we can do this project on this day, and if you don't say no, then we're in agreement as far as I'm concerned.
Got it.
But I recognize that you didn't technically say yes, and that became clear when the day came. And so it's the day, we have the day off. It's nice. The sun is coming up. We're snuggling in bed. I'm dreaming about my project, and how I'm going to decorate the study.
And
I'm so
dreaming
excited
about the day off and how I'm just going to relax and just enjoy the day.
So awkward.
There's nothing about enjoying a day off that says steel case.
Honey-do project. Honey-do project. And so I'm talking about, where I'm going to put things in the study and how I want it to be set up. And then you make out of nowhere to me, you make this snide comment and you're like, please decorate something. And I'm like, what? Like, it threw me off. And I'm like, what's that supposed to mean? And it's off to the races from there. And you start talking about how I haven't decorated the house and there's nothing on the walls. And I'm just like, that's not true. And I start naming different things that are on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start talking about bringing up this old source point.
Yeah. So I was holding this grudge against you. I had this grudge against you. It's just the truth anyhow. I had a grudge against you because you moved from our home two of the wall hangings that I really liked that was at the top of our staircase, and you took them to your office and you didn't replace them.
Right, to my offsite office.
Yes.
Right. Yes, this is true.
And
but
I have
they came,
not let it go.
so they came from my office to begin with. I purchased them for my office. When I moved office space, I brought them to our home and put them at the office. And they were
settled. They had
and
found
then
home.
I moved office space, and so I took them and put them in my new office space. You were sad about that. And so that space has been blank. And so again, out of nowhere, you throw this blow about me not decorating. Criticism, by the way, which we talked about in a previous show. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that was so unnecessary. And that, threw us into basically, I don't know if it ruined the day, but it definitely ruined the moment. Mm. And I just, was so hurt by it, actually. I'm just like, wow, what is this? Beat up on Marissa Day. And for the record, I didn't get my wonderful study set up. And I imagine you didn't necessarily get your beautiful day because the whole energy and the mood of the day was ruined.
Yeah, the energy kind of shifted a little bit. And I think part of that for me was, again, so you had this plan that you wanted to do some decorating, and I'm still holding on to this past thing that I brought up some time ago about, hey, this is an issue for me that you took, these wall hangings away and left it bare. Can you put something back there? So in my mind, we have to address this before we address that. Mm. And I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or otherwise. I'm just saying that's what was in my mind.
So it's really interesting because basically what I just heard you say is, to some extent, you were feeling, you were sentimental to some extent about it, and to some extent resentful that I was trying to now decorate another space, and you were still resentful that this other sentimental space to you hadn't been cared for.
Yeah, so my issue was, don't decorate. And again, this was my view of the situation. Don't decorate the external office to the neglect of the home. Mm-hmm. And so that was a big deal for me. And so all other renovations and moving of anything is at a halt until we repair the breach that occurred here.
Interesting. And so the external office to you was getting priority over the home.
Over the home. And
wow.
Yes.
Why you didn't just say that?
I've said it 1,000 times.
But you didn't say that.
Is it possible? Can I say, is it possible that you just didn't have your listening ears on?
No, you didn't say that. Mm. What you just said is different than what you've been saying. Mm. You've been saying, or you had been saying, you took the pictures off the wall. Mm. Right? Mm-hmm. Or decorate something.
Gotcha.
It's very different than it seems like you're prioritizing your external office over our home.
Right. So the office is decorated.
Yes.
And the home has missing pieces.
Yes.
That's an issue. Yes.
To me, that's different. And, so one of my greatest pet peeves in the entire universe is there's this phrase out that's popular now, and it's called, I'm feeling some type of way, right? Rather than expressing the actual emotion that you're actually feeling. Mm-hmm. And so I try to be and encourage everyone in my circle of influence to actually use your emotion words, because emotions are data. Right? It's information. And so, like I said, if you notice, I was like, oh, it's sentimental to you. And there was resentment, right? I don't ever want to make you feel resentful intentionally, or dare I say, jealous. I don't think you would ever in your machoism say, you're prioritizing your external office over our home, which is important to me. It might be difficult for you to use those words and say it, but oh my God, how much more effective would it be if you did? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like assertive communication is really expressing your feeling and what you need from me.
Well, I think part of the issue is that level of assertive communication requires a depth of vulnerability, and a willingness to express feeling as opposed to anger. Those are expressing a real emotion that this bothers me, as opposed to just responding and giving an angry response that shows up as decorate something. As opposed to, hey, I know it's an issue for me that you seem to be prioritizing the decoration of the office over decorating the home, and you could just kind of strip this bare and took it to the office. I have a problem with that. Can we redress this?
Yeah. I mean, do you think you knew that?
Good question. I knew I didn't like it. And I knew it was something that bothered me. And it's something that I'm pretty sure I expressed, but I probably didn't express it as calmly, as thoughtfully as it's being expressed now in that moment during that time.
Yeah. And I don't disagree. I mean, I think you may have said that, but I think you said it in a spirit of anger or like accusation or criticism,
which never lands well,
versus a spirit of hurt, right? Or concern, which again, like you said, throwing it as an attack at me versus taking ownership and saying, this impacts me, gets very different results.
Yeah. Because if I approach it from an angry standpoint, you feel, or you have there's a tendency in this relationship for there to be at least initially some level of clapback.
I got a motto. What's my motto? What's my motto?
Tell the people your motto, baby.
You tell them. It's more effective if you tell them.
Oh my gosh, it's hilarious. Her motto, ladies and gentlemen, is don't start none, won't be none.
Won't be none. Don't start none, won't be none, right?
Hilarious. So cute.
So yeah, I think this show is going to help us more than anybody in the world.
Absolutely.
Because I understand it more now even than we did, when it happened and how we resolved it. But I think we just, argued it out and probably went our separate ways. I go back to the interview with Michelle Obama that we talked about a week or so ago, and her talking about learning to argue with Barack. And I think we've learned how to argue with one another. And for us, often that just means just walking away and letting it go and, cooling off for a while and then just moving on. Which I think is what we did. And then, like a day or so later, we took family pictures and got our pictures back. And you were like, oh, maybe we can put this picture up in that space. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Actually, we could do a collage. And so we started brainstorming together about what could go in that space. And so that's really how the issue resolved. But, now as I understand it a little bit more, I'm like, okay, I understand why it's important to you. And, for the record, I've been wanting to engage an interior decorator. So it's not that I have been ignoring it. I just haven't really had the money to really do the decor like I really wanted to. So it's not that I've been like, just forget you, I don't care. I just haven't necessarily been able to do it I've been waiting to be able to do it like I really want to. But in the meantime, we can do something simpler that we create together.
Sure, why not?
Isn't that sweet?
Absolutely.
Meanwhile, I still don't have a study, but whatever. We'll talk about that next time.
You do have a study.
I mean, I'm saying it's not set up yet. We still got to get my study set up. How do we get there? Still case. So we need to schedule that for someday. But I digress. So, yeah, I mean, I think that learning to let things go and how we learn to sort of disagree without being disagreeable has a lot to do with our sense of self, which is really kind of the topic, of the day, or sort of the element in the room today, which is self-esteem and emotional well-being.
Yep. So today's element in the room, high self-esteem and emotional well-being. Self-esteem is defined as confidence in one's worth or abilities, and it's rooted really in self-respect and just kind of how it is that you see yourself. I think there's a good principle that's kind of covered in scripture that talks about you can only love your neighbor to the degree to which you love yourself. So if you don't feel good about you, it's impossible to feel good about me. You can't hate you and love me. It's impossible. So in many respects, self-esteem is the best gift that you can give yourself and your partner in relationship, because when you have good self-esteem and emotional well-being, it's not only a gift for you, but it's also a gift for your partner in your relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to sort of know who you are before you can be in healthy relationship with somebody else.
Yeah.
Bottom line, I think sense of self is like your perception of yourself. It's loving who you see when you look in the mirror. And you are not incomplete, without another person. You are perfectly whole by yourself.
Right.
And that is so important before you get in relationship with somebody else. Like you can't necessarily feel incomplete and be looking for someone to complete you.
Correct.
You got to know that you are already complete. Like know your gifts, know your values, know your convictions, know what you stand for. I think when I was coming of age, like we, got together and got married, and I was still coming of age. We were still coming of age at that time. And I think that was one of the challenges in our relationship, that I didn't necessarily have a strong sense of who I was yet. And because of that, I was really kind of conforming to what I saw in my grandparents, what I saw on TV, and a lot of it was influenced by what you wanted me to be.
And I also didn't have a strong sense of myself. And so we're just flying by the seat of our pants, just making it up as we go.
Exactly.
Which is unhealthy. And I think one of the things we can definitely attest to is it shows up in how you treat other people.
Yeah.
It shows up in your relationship. People with high self-esteem treat other people well because they feel good about themselves and they respect themselves. So how you engage the world around you says a lot about how you feel about yourself, because ultimately it's just a reflection of how you see you and how you treat other people, especially those closest to you. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's true. I ended up kind of like losing myself, because then now you're a parent as well. And, so you're, this to them and you're this to him. And basically who you are is like nowhere to be found. And I think that is really common, where people end up either losing themselves because they didn't know who they were to begin with, or they step into these roles that they play in life and end up forgetting who they were, and just find themselves kind of like with no sense of self. And that, again, I think a marriage or a healthy relationship is about two whole people coming together to create partnership. It's definitely not about two broken vessels or a strong person and a broken person coming together. That math doesn't work. It's a formula for disaster, basically.
Yeah, it's a formula for disaster and bitterness. I used to say, I'll take care of you and you take care of me was kind of my mindset. We're going to watch each other that way. But, I've kind of upgraded it now to say, I'll take care of me for you. And you take care of you for me. And so in that way, we're kind of owning our self-esteem in relationship to one another.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think I talked about in our intro segment, I talked about, some of the history that we had with abuse a little bit. And we were separated for a while. And I think during that time, I was able to, sort of find myself again because like I said, I had lost my independence. I'd lost, you talked about me being a wild liberal, which is still so crazy to me, but there definitely was a vibrancy about me, a sassiness to me that makes me me, and I had conformed and really lost all of that. And over the course of the year that we were separated, I was able to sort of find me again and, do things that I didn't, know that I could, that I didn't know that I could. I was able to, I was living independently and, we were co-parenting. And so I had, the 3 kids myself a bunch of the time, and you had them. And, so I was really able to have the time that I needed to live on my own, to look in the mirror and love who I saw and be independent and be okay with that. And, fortunately, when we decided to reconcile and we were able to come back, it was really important to me that you knew this is who I am, and that, you accepted that this is who I was going to be, and I wasn't going to necessarily make myself small or be different anymore in order to make the relationship work, right? And you were okay with that.
Yeah, I think we definitely, in our time apart, worked on ourselves and were able to bring our self-esteem into balance, get a better sense of who we were as individuals. Because again, we grew up together. And so we had this other esteem, if you will. We had what our socialization was from our parents and that upbringing. Then we immediately, get into relationship, and then we have whatever that is with that mixture. But we never really was able to identify and grow into who we really were as individual beings. And I think that separation really, really helped us to do that and say, hey, this is who I am. And you're like, hey, this is who I am. Does this work for you? And yeah, it worked.
Turns out it worked. I like that. So what do you think about the emotional piece? Because people come with pasts, like with stuff in their family, stuff like heartbreak and grief and all kind of stuff. So like, what do you say to couples with stuff?
Well, stuff happens. Stuff is part of the journey. I like to use the analogy that you're all riding in the car together. And so if there's an accident that occurs, everybody's involved in the accident. So if one person experiences something within the context of a relationship, you're both experiencing it. And so you have to learn how to work through it. You have to learn communication is critical. And you have to learn how to be vulnerable and honest with the stuff of your past and how that stuff is impacting perhaps your worldview and paradigm, how you see things today and how that is impacting the relationship.
Yeah.
And just really being open to what the truth is, getting the truth on the table. One of our old pastors used to say, you can't tell the truth, I can't help. So getting the truth out there and being vulnerable, expressive, and really working through what is truth in terms of my past, what it means for how I see the world, what it means for how it shows up in this relationship, and how do we work to build this thing together.
Yeah, and get help. Yeah, do your work, right? And it's like you physician heal thyself, like that's not a thing, So if there's trauma and you love and want a healthy relationship, get healthy by any means necessary. Right. And so you really want to do the work, whatever that is, if it's a spiritual advisor, if it's a counselor, a therapist, if it's a coach, whatever, connecting to do the work to get past and through that is really important. And I think that, for men in particular, or not necessarily to stereotype, but men or for people that are kind of have walls up and just sort of try to deny that they don't necessarily have a problem or need help. What do you say to people like that?
I don't think it's necessarily a stereotype. I think there is some fact there. For the most part, it's been my experience over a significant body of work that men don't necessarily in large quantities like to work on their relationships. They just want their relationships to work. And, to some degree, that's fact. And so, my thought there is that, you have to, in the same way that you have to invest time to take your car to get it inspected and checked out and make sure that it's ready to be safe on the roads and that the state that you're in will approve it for operation on the roads. You need to do the same thing with yourself, your emotional well-being. Get checked out. I think it's important that we lose this stigma that is something limiting or less about us as men and even women if we talk to people to get things out as individuals and as couples. And so I think it's critical. It's
like doing a cleanse.
It's like doing a
detox.
What did you do?
Better out than in.
Right. So definitely, engaging the process, not being afraid of that process, and being open and honest throughout the process, because there's healing on the other side of that.
Yeah. Did you do that?
That's exactly what I did. The amount of time that I spent, sitting on people's couches and in comfortable chairs and just kind of pouring out the abundance of, what shaped me, my worldview, how I saw the world, and just working through those things and thoughts and how they were negatively impacting my relationship. It was critical to our success.
So this is interesting. So I feel like I'm interviewing you. I'm sorry, but I'm fascinated by this.
Hey, I'm happy to be your first guest.
So I have two questions, I think. The first one is, what prompted you to go to someone's couch? Like, did you go voluntarily? Did you go kicking and screaming? How did you get there? What made you go?
Yeah, I went voluntarily. No one put a gun to my head. And I was not told to walk a plank. So, yes, I went voluntarily, but at the suggesting and prompting of folks. And I think it's important to have people close to you that you allow to influence you as well. So I didn't necessarily go kicking and screaming per se, but just got to a point where you want to unearth whatever the issues may be and just really spend time digging into your mental health and emotional well-being.
And did you like it? Like, did you always find that it was wonderful, or like, what was the experience like for you?
So no, you don't always like it. I did not always like it when I initially started going to visit with counselors and that sort of thing to process through. First, it takes time to get to a place where you want to be vulnerable and open. I started this podcast by describing myself as someone who has a conservative lifestyle. And so, the idea of, me sharing with somebody my innermost thoughts and concerns and fears and anxieties and those types of things, that's not normal for me. And it's not something that's intuitive. And so I think definitely getting to a place where you are able to let that guard down and really get real with those things is definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think sometimes, like, so we coach couples or have coached couples quite a bit. I think finding something that works, like you go and you don't have a connection with the person, or, it's not working for you, doesn't mean the process doesn't work. Like, if you can, you go and see someone and either partner isn't feeling it, then find someone else.
Right.
Like, don't discount the whole process just because you don't have a connection. Like, sometimes, we have, friends and they don't feel comfortable talking to us because they know us, or one partner knows us and the other partner doesn't.
Sure.
It's not about us. Like, do whatever it takes to get to, so you find a neutral place with someone that you feel connected to, whose expertise you believe in.
Exactly.
Right. So if you tried it and it didn't work, doesn't mean all of them are terrible and all of them are bad.
Right.
Like, try something else. Word of mouth, it helps, right? Ask friends, ask people that put it on Facebook or what have you, until you find something that works. But don't discount the process just because you had a bad experience. Like you always say, kick again, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So no, definitely the process is definitely worth the time and investment, and definitely engage it. Show up fully. Show up.
Because I think that if you're not healthy personally, right? If you don't love who you are, it's virtually impossible for you to really love someone else.
Absolutely.
Right? You will attack them. You will be enabled. You will be a victim in the relationship and destroy something, not because the relationship itself is bad, but it's because you are not healthy emotionally, or your esteem is not where it is, your sense of worth isn't where it is. So do the work so that your relationship has a chance at success.
And you got to do it because, ultimately you have to get to a place where you love yourself and you're at a great place with your self-esteem, because you're all you got to work with.
Ooh.
You are all you got to work with.
Yeah.
So I think everything in, our world has a maintenance plan. Our refrigerator has a maintenance plan. The cars have maintenance plans. The AC unit has a maintenance plan. And so everything gets serviced except our relationships. We are not intentional as we need to be about servicing the relationship and making sure that we're taking it in for routine maintenance as we do everything else. So we definitely want to encourage you to be intentional about taking your relationship in for maintenance and getting the help you need to live the success that you deserve.
I love it. And I think that's a good segue to our question from the listeners for the week. It says, how do you handle when one partner is struggling and one partner is thriving?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is recognizing the dynamic of relationship. And for me, it's that relationship is a team sport. And so there can be games, just kind of being a person who grew up playing and watching athletics and being heavily involved in athletics. I can be having an off game. I can be missing, a lot of shots. But if my team is doing well, then I'm still able to celebrate and to be excited, because ultimately we are walking away with the trophy. We're walking away winning the game. So I think the first thought that comes to mind for me is that it's a team sport. The second thought that comes to mind for me is that there will always be some level of ebb and flow in terms of the relationship. Where it's rare, it's possible for couples to consistently have their Jay-Z and Beyonce existence, but it's not unusual.
Like everybody's at the top of their game, you mean?
Everybody at the top of their game, but it's not unusual for couples to have some degree of ebb and flow. Ideally, you're at the zenith at the same time. So Zenith Television, if you're still out there, I take that sponsorship. Just putting that out there. But, there is a possibility for that to occur. And when it does, just recognizing that it's a team game.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, to your point, I think about, when we were early in the marriage and working on our degrees, like I went on Monday and Wednesday and you went on Tuesday and Thursday. And then after that, I sat out for a while. You went straight through and got your master's and then went on and got your PhD. And, I took a while. So, there were times where I was making more money and there were times when you were making more money. And so, like you said, it just kind of ebbs and flows. And I think the goal is like to communicate. One of my favorite moments, I think, for us is shared vision, which is actually one of the elements in our model, is when we got to a place where we started dreaming together. And my dreams, I know your dreams. And then we kind of put those dreams together and created a shared vision board together and talked about time frame and what that looked like. And so, we now kind of have like a 10-year vision board, and I know what you're working towards and you know what I'm working towards and we know what we're working towards. And when opportunities happen, maybe it's mine, maybe it's yours, maybe it's ours. This podcast, for example, 20 years ago, we weren't saying we want a podcast, right? But we definitely wanted to work together. Sure. And so this is kind of a zenith, I would say, for us. But the, long term, you're working in corporate now. You want to necessarily be doing that forever. I didn't want to be doing that forever. I'm off. You're still working. So it definitely ebbs and flows. And so I think it's an opportunity to build intimacy honesty, to be honest. Like when, it's all ultimately a lot of this stuff comes down to communication and just talking about it and being honest about it and vulnerable about it. And, so if in fact, one person seems to be thriving and you are communicating and it's a team sport, which is great, and one person isn't, that they're talking about that and that we have kind of a shared game plan for what we're going to do about it and when, their season is going to come. I think where you get into trouble is where the partner feels isolated. And, maybe they're kind of in the background and they feel like their partner is sort of leaving them behind. I also talk to couples a lot where they feel like their partner doesn't want to come where they want to be and they kind of grow apart. That can be a little tricky, I think, sometimes too. And so it's really just about allowing each person to be their own self. And maybe your partner is fine with where they are, and that's okay. And so I just think the communication is important and that you don't let resentment build up and that you're not judging each other and that you trust that, the seasons of life means that there's ebb and flow, like you said, and you kind of use that to your advantage and not as a disadvantage.
Yeah, I agree. And then if they're not okay, just kind of working to pick them up. If I'm 0 for 20, in a game, my teammates would pick me up. And so then I think that's connected to what I said earlier about I work on myself for you and you work on yourself for me so that we are able to be at the top of our game and able to experience the NBA Finals, all 7 games courtside.
Do I have to go?
Yes,
Am
of course.
I in your vision?
You are in my vision. Okay. You are there.
I'm just checking.
You are there.
I got you.
You're not enjoying it for whatever reason, but you're there.
I got you. All right, folks, we are going to call that a show. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, we would certainly appreciate it if you subscribe and don't keep us to yourself. Share it with a few of your friends because we are new. You can use the hashtag Life, Love, and Leadership or L3 Podcast. And if you've got questions, we want to hear it. Visit us at successfulmarriages.org and find us wherever you listen to podcasts. See you next week.
Take care.
This is Life, Love, and Leadership. The Life, Love, and Leadership podcast is a presentation of Marissa Q. Paine International, Dr. James Paine Speaks, and the Foundation for Successful Marriages. Connect with us. Find us and follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more about our guests, show notes, services, events, or to get involved, visit successfulmarriages.org. Life, Love, and Leadership is another positive production of Rare Gem Productions. Thanks for listening.